couple more trees here. These are some of my favorites. I'm a big fan of Kingsville Boxwoods. You see a lot of videos of them on the web. They're an interesting tree because they backbud like crazy. They're very slow growing. This tree right here is probably about 30 years old, believe it or not, and it's tiny. I mean, the thickness of the trunk is round as my thumb. But they develop roots very quickly. They backbud just ridiculously quick. And as you can tell, you can see the backbudding going on in here. I'll zoom in for you guys to see. But when I wired this tree in the fall, I stripped all of these little buds back. And I'm going to pinch this one off just to show you. Over the winter, that kind of growth in a greenhouse, it's just, it's just not common on everyday trees. But that's why I like these guys, is because they're an evergreen. They do fairly well with wiring. Most of the time you see them when they're older like this, they just kind of turn into a shrub versus a tree. So that takes a little bit of care and practice to get that there, to keep them kept. But, to keep them all, nice and show quality, if you will. But that's the thing, is that you can't always keep your tree in show form because it's not healthy for the tree. So you just have to let it go. And these trees they respond so well to just healthy growing, wiring, repotting. I mean, you can severely root prune these things, and they don't seem to mind. Fertilizing them, no big issue, and they're just pretty all the time. And as you can tell from this tree, this thing was just repotted on February 17th into this nice flat, thinner container, and it's just going crazy. Hasn't slowed down, hasn't even skipped a beat. I've had this thing in a nursery pot for probably, 2 years. I picked it up over in Oregon a while back and wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with it. Did some real, heavy pruning and thinning this last fall. Left it in the nursery pot until until February when I potted it up here, and just, really didn't do anything besides pot it up and put some moss on it to kind of give it a little bit better appearance. But it's going to stay this way for another couple months, and then I'll go through and do another styling and keep it in the shade, over the summer, and let it do its thing. And eventually, with another year or so, we might have something that looks pretty decent. But again, this one's breaking a lot of the rules because I didn't want to go crazy and prune it and end up, putting the tree in jeopardy or risk it. So I'm just letting it do its thing, and it's responding quite well and going crazy. So another set of boxwoods I have here are 3 I did in sort of a group style or group fashion. I wanted to do something that looked like root on rock, and these guys do quite well. I've been training them to grow root on rock. I'm just waiting for them to finish attaching and growing some roots to secure them, then I'll remove the wiring that's helping them stay attached. Excuse me. But again, these trees right here are probably 4 or 5 years old. This one may be a little bit older, but similar situation. I've got them wired to the rock with moss helping hold them. The roots on these little guys. When I pull this guy out of the other pot I had him in, I had him in his own individual pot. The pot itself was about this deep, so he was up about this tall. When I put him in, I root pruned his roots back to a half an inch or so, fairly shallow, and he was in that pot for a little over a year. When I pulled him out, the whole bottom of the pot, actually I'll show you the pot. He was in this guy. This little guy here was in this guy. And there's a picture of him on my webpage. This thing was so packed full of roots, I cut 3/4 of them off and anchored them to that rock when I potted them up. Just remarkable how these trees are. They're really fun to work with. They're very cool looking. They look ancient without a whole lot of work, and they're just a pretty tree. So I encourage any of you, if you haven't worked with any Kingsville Boxwoods, go out to some of the distributors, your local nurseries, and see if you can get some. They're fun to work with. They're pretty hardy, and again, they're evergreen, so they look pretty all year round. So very fun tree. guys. This is the tree that my kids call Mr. Miyagi. We named him that after watching Karate Kid, the old school ones from the, I think they're the 80s. But yeah, so we call him Mr. Miyagi. I repotted him up back in February, early February in the greenhouse, and waiting for him to make a little bit more of a recovery and get some new roots growing and some new growth, some signs of new growth, and then I'll give him another styling later on this year. But this is one of my first trees of real value I got, and you know, all my trees, have various. All my trees have various, values, sentimental value or monetary value. It all depends on how you look at it. But this is one that, when I got this tree, I was ecstatic, and it's been a lot of work, a lot of fun. But when I repotted it up, I have better plans for what I want to do with it. And this pot just screamed to me when I saw it, and my wife actually was like, you need to pot that tree. And we were at the nursery together and said, I'm going to get it and I'm going to do it. And so we repotted it up, and it looks great, I think. I love the thin, sleek lines of the pot, and the color matches the deadwood tone, and it's coming together. So now without any real styling up top, it needs to be thinned out and rewired a bit and some work, but it's a beautiful tree, and I like it. And so anyhow, thanks for looking at this guy here. I'll show you my Japanese maple that I finished wiring. Hasn't broken bud yet, but she's getting really close. Looks good, and I'm excited to see how it turns out. So alright, so here you have it. Pardon my crude backdrop and whatnot, but I know it's difficult to see. But this tree is just about there with the movement I want, the overall look. Again, it's several years out before it'll ever really amount to a whole lot because it has a lot of flaws. But overall, I've been pretty impressed with how well it's taken the wiring and the movement I was able to get out of the tree. When I repot it up next time, I will reposition the tree in reference to how the tree actually leafs out. But for its initial wiring, not too bad. At least I feel like it's fairly decent. Decent movement before these branches really get too thick where I can do a whole lot. So there you have it. Springtime, it will shoot out some bright green, almost a yellow leaf. And when that happens, I will be sure to make another video and give you guys an update on that and show you what that looks like. So anyhow, thanks for looking.